it's been about 15 seconds since we've heard from Betty Krause. So she's going to guide us through a conversation with community partners who are doing this work every day, testing ideas, building relationships, and shaping the change from inside out.
And as we look towards building tomorrow, we have some very, very powerful guests here tonight who will join us on the panel. So it's my pleasure to welcome and joining us on the panel tonight, Sue Harris, and Olivia Zelaya from St. James, Clayton Tribble, and Megan Jones from the Harmony Community Foundation. So why don't you folks come on up? And these powerful partners are full of opportunity to respond to the challenges and invest in what matters most for their community residents. So as they get access to the resources we're talking about tonight and follow programs designed to support these small communities, they shape these projects. And I'm going to be very excited to hear from them tonight as we look at the momentum they've gained for the resources they're tracking.
And they're in the middle of this work right now, learning along the way, building on what makes their town special, and showing that there's no single right way to do this. Their stories remind us of what's possible when change comes from within. Please join us in welcoming our panelists from St. James and Harmony.
All right, it's me again. All right, I'm stoked about this panel. These are some extraordinary community leaders here. Each of them have worked with SMIF for many decades and figured out how to layer our investments into the depth of investment that they spurred in their communities. So I'm going to ask you all a few questions. And I'll start it off with my now new hometown of Harmony. So I often get asked, why did you move to Harmony? And I could spend the whole panel talking about it. But I think one of the key things is that when you go through Harmony, which is a population of a little over 1,000 people, it's a town punching well above its weight class. It's this incredible vibrancy where you go down this downtown and there are 4 or 5 restaurants, a distillery, a grocery store, a child care center, a splash pad, and the whole downtown is full. And you may look at Harmony and say it's in the Root River region, you have this beautiful, beautiful landscape, which is true. But here on this panel is the woman, Vicki Turbin, who was part of the founding committee to actually connect all the trails together. And so what we would not have a Root River Trail System today if it was not for Vicki and the team of volunteers she rallied. And so I think the Harmony story has been one of growth and vibrancy is not inevitable. It requires intention, and it requires the people to believe first that they're worthy of that community investment. So, Vicki, in addition to your many other roles, you are also the founding member of the Harmony Area Community Foundation. So, first question is, what made you believe that Harmony was worthy of investing into, and how did you get other people to believe that too?
I became involved because became involved because I was passionate about the desire to make Harmony the best it could be. The Harmony community had given our family over 40 years of love and support. It truly was a calling to serve. I believe what matters most in our lives is the difference we make in the lives of others. Family, friends, and our community. This pay-it-forward attitude makes a difference now and for the future generations to come. The Community Foundation is a pay-it-forward organization. That's right.
Beautiful. Yeah. Community investment. Becky, you've also invested in the Harmony community, both through the ways that you're involved in volunteer roles. She's the coordinator of the youth internship program and a community foundation board member, and also is a business owner. And in fact, I am wearing a dress from her business, the Farm Charm, and across the street is now the Charming Farmer because she's expanded. So can you share a little bit, Becky, of what made you believe Harmony was worth the investment, both not just of your time as a volunteer, but also of your own financial investment? What fostered, and maybe how have you fostered that belief too in the interns you work with?
Well, I have kind of an interesting story. Oh, sorry, hear me? Anyone over the thunder? Oh, cool. I have a little bit of an interesting story. I started in healthcare and actually worked in town as a therapist in the nursing homes for 15 years before I became a serial entrepreneur. And so I was working with the older generation at that point, and just hearing the stories. I worked with a man who came over on the boat from Germany. He was poor, but I got to hear his story, and he really founded Harmony. And so I'm a transplant to Harmony too, just like you are, Diana. And so to hear kind of those roots, that ground root effort of building this town and the pride that these people had in it, it was contagious. And at the time, I was transitioning from healthcare to maybe being an entrepreneur, kind of doing it a little bit on the side. There was about 5 other businesses in town that either were transitioning business owner to business owner, or they were startups. Matt being one of them here. Matt, our singer from Estelle's. And the energy that those 5 new businesses had was just palpable. There was so much going on. There was so much conversation and so many people wanting to come to Harmony. So it was then I knew feet first, just jumping right in. So my business partner and I both quit our corporate careers, took a huge risk, and started investing in our downtown. And so from there, we didn't start the internship program, but we took it over from somebody who was running it before. And I have kind of a neat story with that. She started out with us at 14 as an intern, a summer intern, which is great because you can kind of vet them to see if we're going to keep them or not. But we kept her on. She just had a love for what we were doing, and you could feel her passion with our passion. And we kind of incubated her business. She started a permanent jewelry business inside of our business, and now 5 years later, she's got a thriving business of permanent jewelry. She's leaving us. She's a senior this year, so I'm sad, but it was kind of a neat transition to see, even as a 14-year-old, could feel the energy in a town like that. So.
Yeah, and I mean, to be able to see you too can be a Becky is pretty amazing. All right, we're going to go over to St. James now. With all that St. James has accomplished, I feel like the undercurrent is the power of relationships. It's an example. I feel like your town is how you've invested in the relationships that seem small at first, but over time has allowed you to leverage so many resources and build so many things in your community. So I kind of like a love story maybe. Can you share a little bit about both of your relationship with each other in the sense of how did you come to know one another, and how did you lean on that relationship, the power of that relationship, to do so many things for St. James? Maybe, Sue, we'll start off with you.
Okay, for me, just a second. Okay, not to make it sweet. I knew Nydia's mother. And Nydia's mother was a refugee from El Salvador. And she talks about the political and all of the things that were happening. Nydia happens to be my children's age. And so Marta is an amazing individual. And what I do is I challenge each one of us. Is there's so many people in our communities that we don't know. Our neighbors, their stories. And when you get to know them, it's so powerful. Marta is a hero because she was active in her country to make things right. And when she came to St. James, one of the first things she did while working in our food processing plant is to start a scholarship program for our students. She was a leader at that point. Well, the investments in small town grants and uniting cultures, out of that was born Convivencia, and her children bear her legacy. Her oldest child, Luisa, serves on state boards and is on our school board. Her son works for the ACLU and wants to be a political activist and is working to be able to get his master's. Nydia has been a community leader. And in the time that we came to this winter where things were tough in our community because of our high immigrant population, Nydia was a strong and fearless leader in behalf of bridging gaps and bringing things together to benefit. And how I got to know her is because I knew her mother, and then I knew her because of school. But when I needed someone to interpret, I needed someone, she's the person I called upon. And Nydia has, and all of her family, has risen to new heights because of her mother's teaching, and because we knew each other, and I knew her gifts. And when you get to be my age is about being the wings beneath other people. And it's about uplifting people and helping them to rise to their level. And I hope that that's what I've done for Nydia, and she's amazing at it. And I'm so very, very, very proud.
All thanks to Sue and to Uniting Cultures, really got me out of my box. I got involved in ECFE and I was interpreting for our school, and who didn't know Sue with community ed? So from there, she called on me and said, hey, we need to get our Hispanic population into knowing how can we effectively get together with our Hispanic community to attend ECFE. How do we get them involved? And I was like, well, let's go do it. Let's ask. Let's make a group. Let's bring it in. And from there, it just skyrocketed. We just started working together for any type of community event. And with my connections to the community, I riled them in, and we have been, working together for years now. And yes, but now with our community being under siege or attack with our ICE situation. Even though a lot of the focus was in the cities, a lot of that downpoured to our small communities, and we've all been affected by it. Our businesses were affected by it, and as a small community, we care for our neighbors. We know our neighbors. We know who lives in our block. We know who's at our community events, and I was like, we need to do something. How do we help? How can we dial back the community? And I frankly called Sue, called Uniting Cultures, and started rallying and saying, how can we bring back safety and security to our small communities for everyone?
There's also relationships that one of the core, I think, sense of relationship I feel in Harmony is the intention of building relationships across generations too. When you even look at our Community Foundation board, you see all the decades represented on there too. And so, Becky, you also mentioned earlier that you were a counselor, mental health counselor in assisted and senior living. And so you've been at the crux of a lot of, building a lot of relationships across those generations. And so I'm curious, Becky, what have the older generations taught you about service? And maybe how have leaders like Vicki empowered you to take a leadership role too in your community?
Yeah, like I said, I work with the elderly population, and I think without denial, the main theme was that there was a lot of pride in whatever they did, whether it was farming or raising their children or keeping a home. There was just so much pride. And Vicki and I have had a chance to get together on a personal level, but also through the Community Foundation, because in small towns it's not 6 degrees of separation, it's really 1. So we've gotten together for this event this evening, and we've gotten to share a lot of stories together, and she knows them all. From the start, from who was there, what the weather was that day, and she handed me every folder she's ever had too of the paperwork. But
sounds similar to
yeah.
binders.
But there's just so much pride. You can see that what she's done over her years of volunteer work, and that's just it, volunteer work. This is non-paid, and this is a lot of hard work. We all know that. And so just to see her pride and wanting it to be moved forward, and then, you know, like Benya said, I'm on the board. I'm not the young one. We have much younger ones on the board. But it's so neat to see. We have a 20-year-old that's on the board. And so it's just so cool to see where we started. You don't know where you're going unless you know where you started, I think, right? So to see and have her be able to be the storyteller, us to kind of carry the torch, but then have youth like you, Benya, move it forward then and continue on with that. So yeah, pride, definitely pride in what they've done.
Yeah. I think too, what can be tricky sometimes with intergenerational leadership is both there is so much to give to one another, but also sometimes there's a lot you need to let go. And so Vicki, I'm curious, you know, you are truly Harmony's like premier longtime volunteers. I'm curious, like, what has surprised you about working with this latest generation of leaders? And how can our region's legacy leaders make space for this next generation to both step up and step in?
Calling the next generation of leaders and volunteers is just critical to make our region vibrant. And in order for our next generation of regional leaders to step in, we need our region inviting for both the young and the old. We're really, truly dependent on each other. It comes down to time, energy, and desire. If you don't have those three components, you aren't going to get involved. I've witnessed the transition of leadership within the Harmony area community foundation, other service groups, and the business community. And because Harmony is a small community, many committees and businesses rely on various age groups, which all provide different ideas, different perspectives, and that's what keeps our community moving forward and vibrant. The young and old, when we provide something for both, it attracts new leaders. We enable our older generation to share their experiences and wisdom with the younger. We hope they volunteer. They have more time. The young people need preschool programs. They need daycare. They need quality schools. They need health and recreation opportunities, and many are working remotely, so we need high-speed internet. The senior citizens, they need programs which enrich their lives. Harmony is just both. We've done a good job. Another critical step making a space for the next generation is business transitioning. Harmony's been blessed with several family businesses transitioning from the older to the younger family members. That continuity is invaluable. But sometimes that doesn't work. And so there's a real need to attract new people. Because the business communities are job creators, and they're the driving force behind our community pride.
Yeah. Thank you, Vicki. And it's truly apparent, I think you told me this stat that there have been 5 business transitions from one generation to the next, I think in even just like the past 2 years or something alone. And it's, I think also a big piece of that is the invitation. And I've been so blessed personally. When I moved to town, Vicki came over with tortilla soup for my for mom and dad who were dealing with not sleeping newborn. And it's that invitation and this leaning into the personal relationship. I think of small towns where they say, "I see you. You're here. You are worthy. And then when the ask of can you serve on this thing comes up, you're like, well, you gave me tortilla soup, so of course I will. So thank you for modeling that so beautifully, also to me. One of the other key themes too of transition is I think also a lot of the demographic changes that we are seeing in our communities. And I think rural communities that are experiencing demographic transitions, sometimes, especially between newcomers and the local community, there's often a question of who is supposed to change. Is it the immigrant coming in, or is it the local community that needs to change? And I think what I have learned so much from the St. James community is that when you are in relationship with someone, both of you inevitably change. And so the question is, do you change toward each other, or do you change away? And so Nydia, I'd love for you maybe to share a little bit of, in your time in St. James, how have you seen among the Hispanic community the change towards the St. James community? How have you seen the integration of your community into the civic life of St. James?
I think, definitely from the school point, it has changed as our school is, I believe, 71 or 61% Hispanic population now. And we have such a great ELL program and welcoming program, but also our town. Our town has invested in murals, in welcoming murals, and it just brings me so much joy to be able to have my kid, who's 10 years old, on a bike, small town, always taking his bike everywhere, and he can drive his bike downtown, and there's 3 murals now, that are downtown that say gay murals in many languages. And how awesome that we can do that we can provide. United Cultures has invested in our community and really made a statement that everyone is welcome, everyone is here, and that we welcome them. And our businesses have grown, and we feel the support. We feel the support, and we know that we can find our relationships and bring those resources to our small town. We're in the smack dab between Mankato and Burlington. And finding resources in our small town is really hard. And we have our golden age too that has difficulties trying to get some resources. But luckily, we have our connections, and we're able to slowly bring in resources and have our golden age, which is a Latino-based 65 older group, to be able to socialize our community. And it's really helped our mental health. It's really helped connections, resources, bringing resources to our community. It's heartwarming to see that our community stands behind us and is welcoming to everyone.
Yeah, beautiful. Sue, in our last few minutes, can you share too, what have you seen in St. James among the the local community? What have you seen among the local community? What's changed with them through this power of relationship?
Don't get me wrong, it's tough, and it was hard at the beginning. And we had a very difficult time passing our school referendums because we had ESL programs that took extra space. But the people that lived in St. James decided and made a concerted effort that we are going to translate, we are going to welcome, and we are going to work towards that. And we did that over many, many years. But the tipping point is that when we got our small town grant with Uniting Cultures, at the same time that we were connecting with Marta, and we were able to coalesce at that point, and that little bit of seed money now has led to murals in town, welcoming a plaza that was equally decided by our Hispanic families and our community. We are proud. Majority of people, maybe not everybody, but the majority of people are proud that we have that high diversity. Because I think that's a wonderful place for our children to grow up. Because our world is diverse. We need to see each other. We need to have a relationship with each other. And when we do, magic happens. Community thrives. And in many small towns, we've lost population. But my EDA director, just at Rotary, she walked out the door and said, we've always been under 5,000. And she said, we're going to hit 5,000. We are increasing, and we're increasing because we're welcoming to all people that want to make this town home and that we see each other. And thank you to SMIF for giving that beginning, that training, that support, because without that seed money, all these layered things have happened. And then when the difficult times came this winter, at our local church, we held a meeting to say, who wants to be a part of helping and supporting when ice comes to town and our neighbors and our businesses are affected? We had 40 people at the very beginning. We've raised money. People have taken food to people that were sheltering at home. And then what I can tell you, and I'll leave you with this, I was at the Early Childhood Conference because that's my background. And I shared this story that our adult basic education program, where we teach English and our family literacy program to support our little ones. When I came to town, we had 7 students. And so we decided that back in COVID days, in education, we had to take programs out to people instead of having them come in. So we took that model and we called our families. We dropped things off at the door. We kept track and kept support of them. I walked in this past Tuesday and our room was filled more than we had before because we took time to see, to be, and to support. That's what being in small towns is all about. And I'm so proud of St. James, but I'm proud of our region and our area, and I'm proud of Minnesota. We care for each other. So thank you to SMIF on behalf of all of us, because without the seed money, this work wouldn't be happening.
Thank you. Beautifully said. And I think as we look at the future of SMIF, know that the focus and investment into small towns will not waver. When we think about what is critical for our region, both the small towns, the Mankato's, the Rochesters, our micropolitans like the Faribault, we know that essential things like clean water, housing, childcare, transportation are all necessary. But in order to do those things, yes, we need to layer financing, we need to layer public dollars and investment, but ultimately we need the people. We need the people power. And we need people to step up and say our community is worthy of investing into, and you cannot do that type of investment alone. And so what I love about the stories you shared, each of you in your different ways, is that it requires you to see your neighbor, to know everybody. Everybody in your community needs to be part of the solution. It also requires you, whether it's through murals or seeing your downtown businesses thriving, it needs to reflect who you are and how your community may be changing in order for you to feel like you too can invest and be part of that place. And so thank you for showing us that a community economic development strategy, first and foremost, relies on its people doing things together, and that requires ultimately a sense of belonging and the power relationship to get the job done. So with that, a round of applause for our amazing panel. Thank you.
Well, the script says closing acknowledgments, dessert, and networking. I've already had 2 cookies and a cupcake.
It's kind of working out alike.
Yeah, I'll probably take one to go too. But as we wrap up, we want to thank every partner, volunteer, community member who's contributed to the success of our region.
And I wanted to say a special thanks to the previous, past, and future board members for SMIF and all our staff. They really brought us together and helped us focus our efforts.
So if you could please raise a glass and join us in a toast. Up high, up high. There it is. You got elbows and shoulders.
To the communities who keep inspiring us.
To the partners who innovate.
And for the next 40 years, we're building vibrant communities across southern Minnesota.
Cheers! And if you'd like to support Southern Minnesota's future, donations can be made tonight using that QR code that Bob pointed out earlier in our program. It was on the back of your program. And please enjoy some more music from Main Street Harmony and dessert from Pizzeria 201. Keep your hands off those caramel cookies if you could, please. Yes. And don't forget your farewell swag bag before you leave tonight, which includes a gift from SMIF phone clients and grant recipients.
So when it's 8 o'clock for men, you don't have to go home, but you can stay here. All right? And thanks, everybody.
Hold on, Bob. We're not done. No, with all the past presidents, please convene at the front for a photo. And if anybody needs a shuttle ride, there will be shuttles in a yellow bus, I'm told, to keep you dry from the rain. Now we're done, Bob. Have a great night.
Oh, okay.